It's interesting that one of our biggest hurdles is the human ego does not want us to ever be wrong.
Right.
It's a giant hurdle. And human beings, for whatever reason, I guess it's part of the motivation of acquiring information and of advancing your ideas. We attach ourselves to ideas. And one of the things that I always tell young people, like if you want to do better in life and not get tricked by your own bullshit, don't be married to your ideas. Ideas are just ideas. You are not your ideas. Ideas are some things that you fuck around with in your head and you explore and you talk about with friends, but you have to always be honest about them and never be attached to them.
Yeah.
The problem with ideas is that ideas are just like everything else. Human beings grab them and they're stingy and they're like, mine, and I want my idea to win. And you'll lie so your idea wins, and it'll advance your career if your idea wins. And if you can, even if you can unfairly dismiss, or you can be unethical in how you're ignoring certain aspects of data for your opposing ideas. Like, people do that and succeed because of that, because academia rewards them, the media rewards them, especially, if they can publish in the New York Times or something like that. Like, if they can make a story, like, you'll get rewarded for lying.
Yeah. So I can tell you this is my 31st year as a professor. I can read a paper and I can, just by looking at how clean their presentation of the data is, tell you that they cheated. Because the structure of the reality of data is never as clean as how it is presented in many of these journals. And then, by the way, not to sort of tap myself on the shoulder, but some of the top people that I know who ended up getting caught for fabrication of data, I was in private circles saying, I bet you 80% of this guy's research is bullshit. And then it comes out to be the case. Because I'll give you an example. So I did a study, and speaking about being wedded to your ideas. So I had a graduate student that worked with me on a really, really cool project, which we ended up publishing in 2009. Gorgeous paper on testosterone and so on. Really beautiful paper. I noticed that as we were getting ready to run these studies, there was always a delay where he wasn't yet ready to kind of cast the die. And so one day we had gone for coffee. I said, you know what I think? I think that maybe you're afraid that if right now, in the rarefied world of us having just posited the hypotheses but not run the study, we live in a world where it hasn't been falsified yet. So you're wedded to the idea. But I think you're scared that if we run the studies and the data doesn't come out in support, but guess what? It doesn't matter because we're going to reap some benefit from that. Well, true. And he looked at me and he was like, actually, you're exactly right, Professor. I'm afraid to find out whether we're correct or not. I said, just let's do it. It was actually a study on, so there was two parts of the study. And I'm not sure if I've ever discussed it with you. So I wanted to look at what happens to men's testosterone levels when they engage in acts of conspicuous consumption, and what happens to men's testosterone when they see other men engaging in acts of conspicuous consumption. And the general story, as you might imagine, is when I engage in an act of conspicuous consumption, my testosterone goes up because I had a social win. And when I see you, who's a competitor to me, getting into your fancy Maserati, then my tail goes between my legs. So
you feel bad.
So my testosterone goes down. So we designed two gorgeous studies. We ran them. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. By the way, I always joke that for study one, we actually had people drive a Porsche that we rented and a beaten up old sedan. And after each driving condition, we took salivary assays so that we could measure the testosterone. And I always joke, try to get from a granting agency research funds so that you could rent a Porsche. Now, only when you can do that, you're a good scientist. Anyways, and so we ran the studies, and several of the hypotheses that we posited turned out to be veridical, but several were falsified. But to the credit of the editor, unlike the other guy, he found value in even the findings that were contrary to what we had expected, because we had an post hoc explanation for why it didn't work out. And so, lesson to everybody who is an aspiring scientist: always be honest. Don't fudge the data. Don't go back and pretend that you had hypothesized the stuff after you see what the data results are.
Oh,